native peoples moved through these waters long before ships appeared on the horizon. Then came empire, trade, and conquest. Sullivan's Island became one of the earliest occupied spaces in what would become the American experiment, a frontier where power, survival, and identity collided. But history would not pause here. In 1776, during the Revolutionary War, the sands of Sullivan's Island became the site of resistance. At Fort Sullivan, later called Fort Moultrie, an outmatched force stood against the British Empire and prevailed. The island became a symbol of a nation struggling to emerge into independence, asking a question still relevant today: what does freedom truly mean? Yet even in the shadow of liberty, contradiction lived nearby. While one America fought for freedom, another America arrived here in chains. By some historical estimates, nearly half of enslaved Africans brought to North America first touched land through Charleston Harbor. Many quarantined on Sullivan's Island before being sold into bondage. For African Americans, this island became another kind of threshold, not into liberty, but into survival. Somewhere in the silence of those tides, I often wonder if my own ancestors stood here, staring across unfamiliar waters, carrying languages, memories, grief, and strength that history never fully recorded. And yet, they endured. From that endurance came my family story: Cato and Selena, Sandy and Rachel, Dublin and Martha, Isaac and Dolly. Each generation crossing its own battlefield: slavery, Reconstruction, segregation, war, migration, struggle, faith, resilience. They were not merely surviving history. They were participating in emergence. Then, as America fractured again during the Civil War, Charleston Harbor became contested ground. Cannons thundered across nearby waters as the nation wrestled with itself over the meaning of freedom, humanity, and belonging. Once again, Sullivan's Island stood near the center of transformation, watching America confront what it had long refused to face. And perhaps that is why this place speaks so deeply to me. Because Sullivan's Island is not simply history, it is a mirror. It reminds us that emergence is not an event, it is a process. A nation emerges, a people emerge, a family emerges, a consciousness emerges. This understanding shaped Emergence, Journey Towards Self-Realization, in which I looked back to understand the forces that shaped identity, ancestry, and resilience. It deepened in the awakening of consciousness, where the journey turned inward, asking how we free ourselves from inherited conditioning and step into awareness. And now, I see the path ahead more clearly. The tide does not stand still. It remembers revolution. It remembers bondage. It remembers war. It remembers survival. But the tide is always moving toward becoming. Perhaps that is the true lesson of Sullivan's Island, that history is not finished with us, that we are not separate from its unfolding, and that the ancestors who endured before us did not simply survive so we could remember them. They survived so we could continue the work of becoming, so that one day, those who come after us may look back and say, "We too helped history emerge."